I think we've all had to face that question at some point or another. The question, what are you afraid of? You know, coming up as I tell the children they're released and I'm kind of afraid they're going to trample me, right? Because that just happened. But fear is something I think we've all had to deal with, and we've all been asked. How many of you, when you were a little kid and you were afraid of the dark or you were afraid of being by yourself, were asked by your parents, what are you afraid of? I, as a parent, have asked that not too long ago of my kids. Fear is a powerful thing. It can stop even the best of us in our tracks. Now, not all fears are valid. For example, I have what I believe is a very valid fear of heights, because if I fall from a very tall height, I will hurt myself at best or die. I'm coming to grips with, I'm going to have to deal with that fear more as the trip to Walmart where we're moving. You look over and you see the tops of like several 100-foot trees as you're driving up the mountain. So that's a real fear that I have, and I think it's valid, right? Because you can't get hurt and you could die. So there are other fears that are not valid. For example, I am claustrophobic. I'm afraid of being in tight spaces. You're probably not going to die if you're in a tight space. But I have that fear because I just have that reaction to it. So Heidi, when she, right before she moved here, this started, she was terrified of any flying insect. It could have been a housefly, it could have been a gnat, it could have been a mosquito. And the reason she was terrified of it is because right before we moved down here 5 years ago, she saw one of her friends, Ava, get stung on the nose by a bee. And from then on, I mean, Heidi was freaking out and kept saying, Carrie beep. That's what she called a bee. It's a Carrie beep because she couldn't, But everything that flew was a Carrie beep. It didn't matter if it was a gnat or if it was a fly. In her mind, that's that thing that I saw hurt my friend. And so she was terrified of it. I mean, if there was a fly in the house, she would run to us and cry about it. And it was a fly. It wasn't a valid fear. Ruthie, for the longest time, was terrified of elevators. To the point where, and this is where we kind of nipped that fear out of her, she was trying to talk Sherry into walking up 18 flights of stairs. Mama very quickly said, no, that's not how it's going to be, and Ruthie realized she was more scared of Sherry than she was of the elevator, right? So, but no, fears are there. Some of them are real, some of them are not valid. And a lot of that is we have a misunderstanding of what is a valid fear and what is a not valid fear. So last week, we asked the youth in a questionnaire what they're afraid of. 3/4 of the youth are scared of clowns. Now, Lacey put that on there just for fun and then later told me, well, I thought it might be a good idea to know what they're scared of in case you need to use that information later. So now we know they're scared of clowns. Now, I mean, this clown, Tim Curry is Pennywise. That's kind of scary anyway, but that's actually a really common fear. When I was in high school, I was part of a clown ministry. I actually dressed up as a clown and did all the balloon animals and all that stuff. And one of the things I quickly learned is a lot of children are completely and totally terrified of clowns. Like a lot. And then you would have these parents that are like, come see the clown. And the kid was like, we're not talking like a little bit scared. We're talking about like scream at the top of their lungs and run away screaming, scared. And that's how kids feel about clowns. Well, apparently the youth are still afraid of clowns. It's kind of an interesting thing. A clown is not likely going to hurt you. Fear is not a bad thing. Fear can actually be a good thing. It's part of the way God hardwired us as humanity because it's not bad, but it can help us. The thing is, we should not let fear control us. So today we're talking about being afraid and being brave. And some people have this idea that being brave or having courage is the opposite of fear. That's not the case. Wendell will recognize this quote. You can pop up the Duke. Courage is being scared to death but saddling up anyway. Right? And the idea is fear, being brave, having courage, which I like brave better because brave describes an action. Courage, some people think, well, courage is something you have. No, you don't have courage because courage is only lived out when you're scared to death, right? So one of my favorite authors, a guy named Neil Gaiman, says this: being brave doesn't mean you aren't scared. Being brave means you're scared, really scared, badly scared, and you do the right thing anyway. Being brave is about action. It's you choose to act the way you know you should despite the fear that you have. And the reason people choose to be brave is because they realize that there is something more important. Today we lit the love candle. I argue that love is the reason people are brave. It's what they love that they are brave because of. They choose to do the right thing, choose to deal with the fear and move on. So John, in his first letter to the churches, 1 John, makes a little more clear connection between love and fear, or disconnection, showing that they can't mix necessarily. 1 John 4:18 says this: there is no love in fear, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love. Perfect love drives out fear. Now, does this mean that fear will never pop into our minds? No. That's not what it means. What it means is that when we are living a life of love, when we are followers of Jesus and living that out in our life, we will not be filled with fear and allow fear to take over our life. We live in a world where there are some scary things. But that does not mean that we allow that fear to control us. And John is trying to tell the people, don't let fear control you. Don't let it be the thing that drives you. It's not about being fearless, but it's about what you allow to control you. And there are many times where it is easy in a world filled with all the different things that we see around us, where it would be easy to allow fear to drive us. Allow fear to be the thing that causes us to make decisions. But that's not to be the case. Love should be what causes us to make decisions. Love should be what drives us. There are fears that are real. For example, if I saw a grizzly bear coming at me and I was with one of my friends and I was afraid it was going to attack, that's a real fear, right? I mean, a grizzly bear, it's a big bear. It could, kill me easily and my friend. That's real and that's natural, and that's part of why fear is there. Because, see, fear is natural. It's supposed to help us. When we start to feel fear, many times our heads get a little bit clearer because our hearts are pumping so much quicker. Oxygen gets to our muscles, into our brain, and we're able to think we have enough energy to do what we need to do. It's this thing called fight or flight. That fear puts us in that thing, and there are some biological responses to that. And so in the situation where I'm with a friend and a grizzly bear, I might have a little bit more clarity to think about, well, with the grizzly bear, if I act like I'm dead, it'll leave me alone. And then I might have the clarity if my friend doesn't think that way and starts running and I can't act dead because it's going to, hurt someone, then I can realize, well, I do not have to run faster than the grizzly bear. I just have to run faster than my friend who caused this problem to begin with, right? And I would have the energy to do that because I would have that's what fear does. or that's why God created fear, so that it was a reaction to help us. But when we allow it to control all of our decisions, and especially fears that are not founded, that's a problem. And John was trying to tell us that's not the way it should be. It shouldn't control our life. We are in the midst of Advent. And the Christmas story is a story of people taking and making brave decisions and taking brave action. And love is the source of every brave action, like I said before. And that's what we see in the Christmas story. Love is what drives bravery. Patriots are brave because they love their country, love their families, and are defending the freedoms that this country offers to everyone and their families. Husbands are brave because they love their wives. Parents are brave because they love their children. Bravery comes from love, and we see that in the midst of the Christmas story. So today we're going to look at several different people and how they chose not to give in to fear and instead chose to be brave. Even when they were really badly scared, they chose to be brave even when they were scared to death. So we're going to look at Matthew chapter 1, starting at verse 18. Okay, I'll be reading from the English Standard Bible, or version of the Bible. If you want to follow along with me, it's up there on the screen. Now, the birth of Jesus took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. And her husband Joseph, being a just man and unwilling to put her to shame, resolved to divorce her quietly. But as he considered these things, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not fear to take Mary as your wife, for that which is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded. He took his wife, but he knew her not until she gave birth to a son, and he called his name Jesus. How was Joseph brave? A lot of times we might look at this and well, Joseph really wasn't brave because he was going to do this whole divorce thing and he tried to keep it quiet. But Joseph was brave because in that culture, what was going on was really bad for him. He was engaged to be married. Now, back then, engagement was a lot more formal and was actually a lot closer to what marriage is than engagement is in our day and age. And so there were a lot of things, and they were also in the honor and shame culture. And so Joseph, finding out that Mary is pregnant and knowing that he has not consummated their marriage, is like, okay, there's a problem here. So Joseph is a just guy. He's a good guy, and he has some choices. In that culture, that sort of thing happening to you would hurt your reputation a lot. It would hurt your name. You would have shame brought on you. And in honor and shame culture, shame is a terrible thing to happen to you. And so there are some things that you could do to really win back some of your honor. And one of the things that Joseph could have chose to do is he could have made a public spectacle of this, and he could have brought Mary out, and he could have let everyone know, I am divorcing her, and this is why, because she is with child, and guess what? It's not mine. That's a way that he could have combated this shame that was going to be put on him. And so when it says that he tried to do it quietly, that's actually a really brave thing, because he realized that even though, they would not be married. Because he didn't make it a big public thing, there would always be those people that would look at him differently. There'd be those people, and I know we don't have this in our culture, but that when Joseph would come around, they would be talking, and all of a sudden they would stop their talking when he was around. Because they were talking about him, right? We don't do that in our culture at all, right? But no, that's part of it. That people would always look at him differently. People would always question, well, Joseph and Mary, they didn't get married, but there was a kid, and what's going on there? Joseph, we thought Joseph was a righteous guy. Did he and Mary get together before they were supposed to? In that culture, all this could have happened. And so Joseph, in trying to keep things quiet, he was doing a brave thing, because by choosing to keep it quiet, he was going to take a lot of the shame on himself. And so he's thinking about this, and then Joseph has this dream. He goes to sleep, and an angel comes to him in a dream and just tells him, look, here's the deal. Mary, she's told you that this is from the Holy Spirit, and you questioned it. I mean, in that day and age, that wasn't, when someone says that, well, I'm pregnant, but, the things that have to happen for pregnancy, that didn't happen. Well, people today is like, yeah, we've heard that before. That's happened once, and it was Jesus. Well, Mary, when she said that, it hadn't happened before. So this was a new thing that, well, no, I have been faithful, but the Holy Spirit did this. That probably would have been hard for Joseph to really process and believe. So this angel comes and said, this story that Mary has been telling you, don't be afraid to take her as your wife, because she's being honest. This is what happened. And so Joseph has a choice. He has a choice to do as the angel commanded, or to not, to continue with his plan to quietly divorce Mary. And again, in the story, Joseph chooses the brave choice. He says, I'm going to marry Mary. Again, honor and shame culture. People know when Mary's pregnant. It's a small community. I mean, around here, when someone knows someone's pregnant, it doesn't stay quiet, right? Even if, actually, especially if people try to keep things quiet, it doesn't stay quiet. Well, that would have been a similar case. It was an even smaller community. And so, and it would have been a scandal. That juicy gossip that the people that love to gossip, they want to tell everyone about, that's what this was. And so, by Joseph saying, I will do what the angel has told me to do, I will marry Mary, he's also making a brave choice, because those same people that would have talked behind his back and shushed real quiet when he walked up, or shushed real quick when he walked up, they would have other things to say. And he said, you know what? I'm going to make the brave choice. And he did that because he loved Mary. He did that because he realized this was from God. And he loved God as well. And he did that because God let him know the Messiah is here. And you get to be a part of it. Brave choices aren't easy. But when we make the brave choice, God works in some amazing ways and puts us in situations and allows us to be a part of things that are so much bigger than us. Joseph got to be a part of the coming of the Messiah because he made a brave choice. And he made that brave choice because of love. But Joseph isn't the only person in the Christmas story that was brave and made brave choices. We talk a lot about Mary being brave, and she was. We don't always talk a lot about Joseph being brave, but there's one group that we don't talk about their bravery at all. So if you guys want to look with me at Matthew chapter 2, starting at verse 1, we're going to read, again, I'm reading from the English Standard Version. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who's been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for it is written by the prophet, 'And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel.'" Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word that I too may come and worship him." After listening to the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. Then opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. The wise men, the Magi, they were brave. You know, we think about today about travel. We don't really think a whole bunch about it, right? I mean, Wendell, you guys drove 6 hours yesterday. How many miles was that? About 325 miles, okay? We think, oh, that's nothing. That's a day's travel. You know, the girls and I, we drove to Orlando back in the last couple weeks. You know, that's a long trip. It's over 1,000 miles. You know, we're getting ready to move 1,000 miles, right? We don't think about journeys in the same way. In the ancient world, a journey of a couple hundred miles wasn't something you did in a day. Wasn't something you did in a week. Because when you traveled, first of all, you didn't have a bunch of gas stations or hotels that you stayed at along the way. You had to be prepared to camp out. And so these wise men, when they took this trip, this wasn't this small endeavor. This was a very large endeavor. And that's why in tradition, some people think that they were kings. And we have names for them, everything, because of the fact that they were able to take this trip, but also because of the gifts that they brought. Because they were very valuable gifts in that day and age. And so, but they made a choice. They made a choice because they saw a star appear. And they knew that it meant that God was up to something. They knew that it meant that a new king of the Jews was born. And they knew it meant more than just a regular king. And so they packed up. And they came to see this newborn king. They traveled. In the ancient world, there's all sorts of dangers. Just traveling, you might not make it to someplace and back because of thieves, because of just accidents that could happen. And so these wise men making the choice to come and see Jesus was really brave. And so they came to the place they figured a king would be born, right? When you think of a king is born where? In a palace, yes. And so they come to King Herod. And they ask King Herod, well, where is this newborn king who has been born King of the Jews? Where is he? We want to see him and we want to pay honor and worship to him. Because they also knew this was something bigger than just a normal king. So Herod hears this, and what we know about Herod is he was not a nice guy. It is said of Herod, and in the Greek it's a lot more funny. It's better to be Herod's pig than Herod's son. Pig and son sound very similar because Herod was always concerned someone would try to take the throne from him, that he killed several of his actual children because he was afraid they were going to usurp him. And so these wise men come and they ask Herod, hey, who's this new king who was born? So Herod was upset. And the scripture says, and all of Jerusalem with him. They were in an uproar because this was a threat to Herod. So Herod hears this and he gathers together the religious experts and he asks them, okay, where is the king? Where is the Messiah? Where is the Christ supposed to be born? And they tell him, well, Bethlehem. So Herod tells these wise men, these magi, well, we think it's in Bethlehem. And then he kind of brings them along secretly, and he says, just brings them aside and says, hey, by the way, I love what you're doing, and I want to be a part of this too. So when you guys find this king, this Messiah, would you please, as soon as you do, will you come and get me too? Because I really want to worship him too. That's the idea, that Herod had no intention on worshiping him, and we know that from the rest of the story. And so the wise men, they go, and they continue their journey, and they go until they see the star, and the star stops over the place where Jesus is. And they go in, and they see Jesus, and they see Mary, and they worship him, and they bring their gifts, and they give their gifts of frankincense, myrrh, and gold. And then they were told in a dream to go back a different way. Now, remember, these are magi. They're probably rich. They didn't fit. They looked differently. They were from a different country. So them leaving would not have been something it would have been easy for them to just slip away in the middle of the night and no one notice. A lot of times we don't think about that when they left, the people in Bethlehem would have said, oh yeah, we remember, yeah. And yeah, they didn't go back to Jerusalem. They went a different way. So when the Magi, when they made the decision to not go tell Herod, because they were told in a dream not to, because Herod wanted to kill Jesus, wanted to kill the Son of God, because he was a threat to his power. They made that choice, knowing full well it could have been bad for them, because Herod could have heard about that and chased after them too and killed them for what they did. But they made the choice because of love. They chose to come see Jesus because they loved truth and they saw that God was up to something and wanted to be a part of that. And when they saw Jesus and they worshiped him, they chose to really disavow any knowledge to Herod because they loved Jesus. They chose to be brave because of love. So what do we do with this? Well, my question is, today, will we be a brave people? This Christmas season, as we come to the celebration of Christ's birth, are we going to follow the example of these people, of Joseph, of Mary, and of the wise men, and be brave? Or are we going to allow fear to control us? See, the thing is, when we allow fear to control us, now there are exceptions to this. If there's a mental health issue, that's a whole other thing. And if that's the case, You talk to a medical professional, take medicine, do some things to help with that. But if that's not the case and we're allowing fear to control our decisions, our lives, and drive us, we are saying that fear is actually more important than God. Now, I don't know about you guys, but the way I understand things, that means that we are worshiping fear over God, which in the Old Testament they call that idolatry, and that's sin. So the question is, are we going to be a brave people? Are we going to say, you know what? Yes, there are things to be scared of. Yes, there are things that even there are valid fears, but I am not going to allow fear to control my life because Jesus came. And I have hope. And I have love. And God so loved me that he sent his son. And we get to celebrate that. And yes, man, there are some things that are messed up in our world. There are some things that do cause concern and fear. When I think of the future that my daughters are going into. But we are people of hope. We are people of love. And we do not have to allow those fears to control us. So the question is, what are you afraid of? And are you letting that control you? Are you letting that take the place of God in your life because that is what causes you to make decisions? That is what causes you to react. Or as you deal with fear, are you saying, you know what, yes, this may be valid, but there's something greater. I am going to choose to be brave. Even when I'm really, really, really scared, I'm going to choose to do the right thing. Even when I'm scared to death, I'm going to choose to saddle up. That's the example that we have in the Christmas story of people who loved enough to realize there was something more important. I mean, really, the story of Christmas begins in Genesis as they are awaiting, the story of Advent, they are awaiting Jesus to come and undo the fall. And so all throughout the Old Testament, God tells the people, hey, one day things are going to be different. I am sending my son. Christ, the Messiah, will come and will fix things. And so the people of Israel, they believed that. And there are some amazing stories of people who acted bravely throughout the Old Testament because they realized that God loved them and they loved God and he was going to change things. May we be a brave people. Maybe we be a people who no longer allow fear to control us and instead allow love to be what pushes us. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we just thank you for today. We pray that you would help us learn from the example of Joseph and the wise men, that we would be a people who, when faced with fear, would not allow it to control us. But may we be a people who knows that there are more important things out there. May we be a people of love and a people who choose to be brave. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.